can see everything I brought out to lay down to read. It don't really do me any good to write, because the only thing I can write is my name. So what you're getting is straight from the heart. You know, I might stumble and fall. I'm not going to tell you I won't. But it's just, you kind of get what you get. And but I just wanted to first always thank God for letting me be able to be here. Thank you for the prayers. I'm sure when this first happened, y'all was praying for somebody you didn't even know, and you don't know how much I appreciate all the prayers, because without the prayers, you know, I wouldn't be standing up here with y'all today. I just want to kind of tell you just a little bit about me, which David covered a little bit of it with you and all. I was wanting to kind of tell you a little bit about me before all this happened. Like I said, I have worked all my life. My wife will tell you I'm a workaholic. I've always had a full-time job, and I've always had a passion for farming. I have farmed since I was 14 years old, and it's just something, you know, I've always enjoyed. Well, probably in the mid-90s, I decided I kind of wanted to do my own farming, so I kind of got into the cattle business, and I was getting day-old Holstein calves, and when you get those, it's every morning. 7 days a week. You had to get up. You had to feed them in the morning, feed them in the evening. And I'll never forget my wife, Tracy, her grandmother. She looked at me and she said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, Christine, I didn't have anything else to do at 4 o'clock in the morning." And So anyway, I got into the cattle business then, and which it grew. I got up to where we probably had 30 mama cows at any given time. Then I would get in a bunch of calves at the house along with all of those and raise them. And all that was working a full-time job also. And so I stayed busy what I was doing. But to kind of, you know, and I will tell you, a lot of this stuff's emotional. But the downfall to doing all the working is sometimes you kind of let other things slide. And one of the things I kind of let slide was church. We went to a church, and we went for, well, my wife had been going there all her life, and which, you know, when we got married, I was going, but eventually the farming kind of me going to church, and you know, not making excuses. It don't matter what I tell you, because it don't matter between me and you, it's between me and God. But you know, I got word, you know, on Sunday mornings I could think of a good excuse that I need to go put hay in, or I need to go check calves, or do that. So I kind of let church slide, and that went on for years. And you know, I would go certain times, but more so than not, I didn't go. But then my wife switched churches, and you know, she started going to another church, and she had been going there probably a year or so. And one morning she asked, you know, if I wanted to go, and I said, yeah. And you know, the church that she was going to was a bigger church that I'm used to going to. I'm used to a small country church, and I thought, well, yeah, I'll go this Sunday, and then, you know, next Sunday I'll go my normal routine. And which, you know, when I went, you know, I really enjoyed it. Now, like I said, it was a bigger church than I was used to, and we sat up in the balcony, so I wasn't just around all the people. And but you know, it was amazing that, you know, I couldn't wait till the next week to go. I mean, I was ready to go back to church again. And you know, the small things that a lot of people don't think about it, but I'm awful with names. I can't remember names, but even though we were at this big church, you know, I met the preacher the first Sunday. Well, the second Sunday, he knew my name. Well, that, you know, that meant a lot to me that, you know, out of all these people, he remembered my name. And so since, you know, that had happened, I've been going regular. And even with the cattle and all, you know, they could wait after lunch to eat. I was going to go to church. And, but, you know, as that went on, I hadn't been going there long. And then you can kind of see what happened. We were actually at sunrise service on March 31st of 24. And we had got there and I felt a kidney stone. And I have had numerous kidney stones. And I felt it, and like I said, I've had numerous, and you know, each one is different. I mean, they all hurt, and you know, I hope no one in here has ever had one. I hope no one in here ever gets one, but it is the worst pain that you can feel. And I want to pass this around. In this is the kidney stone that caused what you see here. I just, you know, for the ones that may not have had a kidney stone or even know what it is, I just want you to see how something so small can change your life. And I'll just hand it here if y'all don't mind, just pass it around. But in it, the kidney stone hit me that morning, and you know, my wife asked me, said, "Do you want to leave?" And I said, "No." I said, "You know, I want to stay here." You know, so we stayed for a little bit, but as soon as the sunrise service ended, we decided it was time to go home. And like I said, a lot of stuff I'm going to tell you here, some of the stuff happened like later on, but I'm going to put it in at a different place because it just makes more sense to put it in where I'm going to put it in. And through all of this that has happened, and I jump around a lot, so all of this that has happened, you know, first of all, you know, God first. Even though, you know, what always happened, you would kind of think I wouldn't, but I do. And you know, I want you to, y'all know how good God is, and as long with that, and I am not. I'm not putting my wife on the same level as God. But I want y'all to know through this how great my wife is. Because without those two, this would not be possible. But anyway, with the kidney stone, I'll try to get back on track. Stone and all, we left and went home, and really I do not remember a lot that went on. I actually do not remember leaving church. I remember saying we need to leave, but I don't remember leaving church. We got home, and or I assume we got home, because like I said, I don't remember a whole lot. I remember my wife telling me we were going to the hospital, and so we went to the hospital, and when we got there, I'm assuming they run tests and all on me. A lot of this, like I said, I do not remember, so I have to ask her. They run a lot of tests, I guess scans, you know, to see where the kidney stone was and all. And as far as, I don't remember none of that. I remember us leaving, and I remember me asking her, said, "Why are we leaving?" And she said, "Well, they give you medicine, and that's all they can do for you." Well, if I would have been in my I guess you'd say right mind, I would have never left. Because having a kidney stone and you're hurting, they got more medicine at that hospital than you got at home. And I would have never left. And but we did. And like I said, we got back home, and I remember nothing. I don't remember that day, which having a kidney stone, I'm kind of glad I don't remember that day. But that night, I got really, really cold. And, we just assumed, or my wife just assumed, it was something to do with the kidney stone, because when you're in that much pain, just different things happen. Well, hindsight's 20/20. When, she got me a blanket and covered me up, and, we don't know if I passed out, if I went into shock, if I went to sleep. We have no idea. But that, I went back to sleep, slept the rest of the night. Well, that morning, she checked my blood pressure before she went to work. And when she checked my blood pressure, it was, I guess, as normal as it could be. And she told my daughter, said, when you go to work, said you check his blood pressure to see what it is when you go to work. And so luckily she checked my blood pressure, because now I may get these readings wrong, because I always say them one way and it's the other way, but it was like 80/40. And I've already told my wife, if she corrects me, then she's got to get up here and talk. So she's probably not going to correct me, but it was like 80/40 or 40/80, ever how that's read. And so my daughter called my wife and said, we probably need to go to the hospital, being my blood pressure was as low as what it is. We decided to meet in Almar, because that's where my wife works. So we went to Almar Hospital, and we met again. And we went in, and there again, everything's real spotty for me. I don't remember a lot. I remember some, but there's a lot I don't remember. But I think they scanned me again, and they found out that it was lodged. And so I guess after that, they decided they were going to take me to Concord, and which they already had a team of doctors, ready for me and all. And but we stayed at Almar Hospital for like an hour and a half. And like I said, if I'd been a little more coherent, I would have gotten in the car and we would have drove. I would have let her drive me to the hospital. And they brought a ambulance out of Charlotte to take me to Concord. And so I do remember when they walked in, they had like air or something on there. Well, we thought they were flying me, but it was the ground unit. And so they loaded me in the ambulance, which I do remember them getting me and putting me in the ambulance. And I still say that ambulance is probably what kept me from dying, because that was the roughest ride from Almar to Concord I had ever been in. And I said, there's no way somebody could die in this thing is the way it was beating you. And but I remember as we were going to Concord, I could look out the back window, and I could see my wife followed us. And I did not realize that may be the last time I ever see her. And if I knew that, I would have had a cell phone on the way in that ambulance, and I would have called everybody I knew. Kids, my wife. I would have burnt that phone up going to Concord. But I had no idea what the situation was. And when we got to Concord, of course, the last thing I remember is the ambulance driver saying we were 5 minutes from the hospital. Now, they were not in a hurry going up there, because when we left, I don't think there was no reason to be in a hurry. But I remember them saying we was 5 minutes away. Well, when we got to the hospital, from this point on, I'm telling you what has been told to me, because I know nothing that went on. I have no idea of anything that went on from that point on. But I do know when we got to the hospital that the team of doctors were waiting on me to get there. And I know when I got there, they said I had begun to shake, really bad. So I was going into septic shock is what I was going into, because what that means, if anyone doesn't know, my blood had got infected. So more or less I was on the way out pretty quick. And so whenever we walked in or went in, Dr. Olson, he's a urologist from Concord. I don't know if any of y'all know him, but he's to me, one of the most unreal doctors you'll ever meet. My wife said she walked with him down to the OR room, and he was telling her what he was actually going to do while I was back there, and he said it's going to take 5 minutes to do his surgery. And what he was actually going to do is he was going to put a stent in, and that would relieve the pressure and the infection, out. And so he done what he was going to do, and when they come out, then they have a meeting with you and tell you what they done and all. This is me talking. I really, to this point, I really don't think at this point my wife really knew how bad it was. And she may have, but I don't think she knew until she talked to Dr. Olson, and he told her how bad off I was. I think he explained to her, it was pretty serious. And this is one of these that happened later on, but I'm going to kind of stick it in about Dr. Olson. When I first met Dr. Olson, I walked in his office for a visit. And when I walked in, he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I got an appointment." And I wasn't reading in between the lines. He said, "No, really, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, it's like I told you. My wife made an appointment. I'm here to see you." And he said, "You don't understand what I'm saying." He said, "You should have never walked through my doors." And so that happened, several months after. That's when I realized how bad off I was. I didn't, to that point, I didn't realize. But I think of a doctor, they see people every day. I'm not going to say that they don't have a heart. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you think they get used to seeing people come in and that's just their job. But this doctor actually told me that he went home and son and prayed for me. And another one to kind of tell you on that is a girl, I call her a respiratory girl, but she was the respiratory therapist. We talked to her later on, and she was the same way. When we talked to her, my wife had learned to know her and all. This girl was supposed to work 2 days. She works 2 days a week. She worked 4 days that week while I was in there. And she said the same thing. She went home and told her husband, she said, "I just got a patient in," and this was on Monday, so I just got him in, and said, "He's probably not going to be there on Tuesday." She said, "But you need to pray for him." And so that kind of shows you, how bad I was. I was really bad. Well, after I got in, I think I was on, if I'm not mistaken, I think my wife said I was on like 8 different machines, probably that many IVs. I think I had IVs going from everywhere. But when I was in there, she told me that you know, I asked questions. I think she did take a couple pictures, but I don't want to see them yet. But I asked her different things, you know, that went on and all, and she finally told me that on Wednesday, I think Monday and Tuesday, I was really up and down as far as blood pressure, you know, not really knowing what the outcome was going to be. And on Wednesday, I think her and God had a heart-to-heart about all day on Wednesday. And I think she done a lot of praying on Wednesday. And on Thursday, machines started leaving my room, and which is a good sign. When machines start leaving, that means you're getting better. But along with the machines leaving, I was on what you see here as far as me missing my legs and my hand and all. They had to give me what they call pressers. And pressers keep your main organs operating. And the downfall to pressers is it takes away from your small vessels, like your fingers, your toes. It pulls the blood flow out of all that to put your heart, all your major stuff and all. So I was actually on the drug, and I know y'all heard it in the news, fentanyl. I was on fentanyl, and I think that's for pain and all. And the kids couldn't believe when they seen I was on fentanyl, but I was on the legal side of fentanyl. And but yeah, the pressers, they drained me is what they did. But you know, it kept me alive. As far as that, though I was out for 9 days, there was a doctor. His name was Dr. Ho. He's the one that decided to incubate me. He is actually the doctor that Dr. Olson says saved my life, because if they wouldn't have incubated, you know, I would have died. But so I was out for 9 days. When I finally woke up, I'm assuming it was the first day I woke up. I don't know. I seen my hands, or my hand. This hand was, I always give the thing of E.T. If you ever seen the movie E.T. where he holds his finger out and it's just skin and bone, that's what my hand looked like. It was more or less a skeleton with skin on it. I mean, that's basically what it looked like. Well, immediately when I seen that, I looked at the rest of me, and you know, I seen what it looked like, and my wife was sitting beside the bed, and I said, "Have you seen this?" Like she hadn't already seen this, you know. And she said, "Yeah, I've seen it." And I said, "No, have you seen what this looks like? I mean, my hands are black and all." And she said, "Don't worry about it. We are going to figure this out." And so I'm wanting to get mad at somebody. And but I can still remember after that, I thought, well, if she's not going to be worried about it, why should I be worried about it? And so I kind of turned over, and you know, that's the minute I put it in God's hands. I said, you know, there's a reason that this is happening, and you know, we don't know what the reason is, but you know, if she's not going to be worried about it, and you're not going to be worried about it, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to lose sleep over this if the main two's not going to be worried about it. And so basically after that, um, that was, you would say, the main stuff that happened to me as far as being in the hospital and all. There's a lot more stuff that went on. As far as doctor's visits, doctor's appointments, I couldn't begin to tell you how many appointments we had to go to. But as we was in the hospital there, when we left the hospital, I had to go to rehab. And basically what I had to do at rehab is learn how to walk, because I don't know how to explain what my feet and all look like, but if you can imagine taking a 2x4 and turning it up edgeways and walking on it, that's basically what it felt like for me to walk. When we went to rehab, they transported me to rehab. And I won't never forget this either, because I did not want to go, because I'd already been in the hospital 18 days, or I think it was 18 days. And I was ready to go home. And now they want me to go here, and I think I can learn to walk at home. But so I went, and I never forget the nurse that come in there. I was in the bed, and she comes in and starts telling what they're going to do and what's expected of me and all of this. I have never been in jail, but I felt like I was at a jailhouse, because this lady, I mean, she actually scared me, because she was telling me what I could do, what I couldn't do, and what I was going to do. And they had bed alarms on everything. You could not move without a bed alarm going off. I was scared to move. And so she messed up, though, when she was telling me that I would be in there for at least 14 days, 12 to 14 days. She said most people come in here, they're in here 12 to 14 days. And she said we do have some overachievers that will get out in 7 days. And I wrote to my wife and I said, in 7 days I'm leaving. I said, I will be out of here in 7 days. Well, I stayed 8 days and went home. But that was me wanting to go home. I just wanted to go home, because all total it was 26 days, not being at home. But after home and all, that's when all the doctor's visits started. I mean, even through all of this, and I hadn't really told people this, they actually thought I had a heart attack while all this was going on. So we had to go through heart tests and all this, and come to find out it was just the strain. It was not a heart attack. It was just the strain that I was under. But we had to go through just numerous doctor's visits. It was like 2 or 3 a week at least, if not 4 or 5 a week, that we would go to. But after we kind of got settled in at home, I'm gonna try to make a long story short now, as far as not going through all the doctor's visits, but some of the key visits that we had to go to. They wanted me to do a hyperbaric chamber, and that puts pure oxygen in your body, and it helps you heal. And basically what I had was gangrene. If you know what that is or have heard of it, that's basically what I had. As long as gangrene is growing the right way, you're good. But once it stops, then you got to do something. I was going through the hyperbaric chamber, trying to get as much growth out of my hands, my feet that I could get, knowing that, something was going to have to be done. But, we was kind of hoping for a miracle that, some of this stuff may grow back or something. But, we pretty much knowed, as bad as it was, it probably wasn't going to happen. But I went through the hyperbaric chamber, and it just, as I was going through it, I was gradually getting worse, if that makes sense. But about the time I was finishing up, and I'm thinking it was May or June, I had to have these fingers amputated, and just on this hand. So I had those amputated, which going through the hyperbaric chamber made everything heal really fast. And but I was still getting really sick for some reason. I couldn't eat. I was losing a lot of weight, and so I got where I would stand up and I'd pass out. So we went back to the hospital, and come to find out, I had a urinary tract infection. But where they had put the stent in, plus all the blood thinners, I was urinating a lot of blood and all, and it had just more or less, got infected again. So I was back in the hospital again for another 5 days. And, but once which I actually went through like 3 or 4 blood transfusions while I was in there. I had to get blood and all, but once we finally got out of that, everything was really good. They took me off of a bunch of medicines. I was getting back to normal, but as far as the growth had got to a point where it had stopped. It was not going the right direction. We had actually went to Duke Medical Center where we met another great doctor over there. His name was Dr. Pigeon, and the first time I seen him, I told my wife, I said, he's going to do my surgeries. And but we had met with him, and they finally made the call that we got to do something. And so in July, we decided that on July 23rd, we were going to do an amputation on my right hand, and on the 25th, we were going to amputate both legs. And that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. But we knew it was coming. But so on the 23rd, they removed my hand. They must have kept me pretty sedated because I don't really remember, having the other done. I remember the next day waking up and seeing, what was left of me. And, that was pretty tough to look at. That was hard. You would kind of close your eyes and look again just to see if you was dreaming, because you think, as healthy as I was and all, this couldn't happen to me, and but it did. And but kind of way I look at it, it happens for a reason. I wouldn't be standing here talking to y'all now if it wouldn't have happened. And but once we done that, I think I was in the hospital for like another 2 weeks. So I'm getting tired of being in the hospital with all this. But we finally make it back home, and everything was going real well with it as far as the amputations and all. Well, I say we made it back home. We didn't make it back home. We left from Duke, and I had to go back to rehab, which I didn't want to go back to rehab, but I had to go back so they could teach me how to take care of myself, move on a slide board and just do different things. And this is where I'm telling you, or I was telling you how great my wife is. She had to do a lot of stuff that I'm not going to sit here and tell you what she had to do. You can imagine, but she's had to do a lot of stuff that is hard to ask of someone to do. And, if she wouldn't have, stayed with me through all this, it would have been a rough road. But there again, I went back another 7 days because I wasn't staying 14. In 7 days, I come back home and learned to use, the slide board and all. But while we were there, the first day, my main concern is when can I get prosthetics? That's all I wanted to know. I didn't care about transfer, and I wanted to know, when are you going to put legs on me so I can walk? And there was actually a lady from Hanger Clinic come in, and I told her when she walked in, I said, I want to know a time frame. I said, I'm not the type, I don't want you to tell me, well, maybe 2 or 3 months down the road or something. I said, I want to know. And she said, well, in 8 to 12 weeks, we will be fitting you for legs. And I said, well, we're going for 8 weeks, not 12 weeks. I said, I'm ready to walk. And as a matter of fact, I actually think she made me an appointment for like 8 weeks. And so in 8 weeks I went, they casted my legs. Once they casted my legs, I think it was like another week that they actually had me a set of legs for me to walk. And you would think after walking, I'm 54 years old, or 53 at the time, but you would think after walking that many years that missing 7-8 months that walking would be no trouble. I actually told my wife, when they stick them legs on, I'm running out the door and I'm getting in the car and we're going home. And which she kind of laughed. And when I put the legs on, I'm going to tell you right now, that was the hardest thing I think I had ever done, is to take one step. One step went good, but my legs didn't want to follow behind. And that was then it kind of worried me, but am I going to be able to walk again? And which I was very, very determined to walk. So I took it very serious. I went home, which I had to go to rehab in Almar. They worked with me, and they said I was like 2 to 3 months ahead of most people, single amputation. And but along with getting the legs and all, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little further. I got where I could walk real good. I got a spot on my left leg, and so I had to go back to Duke for them to look at it. Well, when he looked at it the night before we went, it busted, and what it was actually infection in my leg. And so we had to go back through another surgery, which was basically they classified as another amputation, but it was just they had to clean it out, resurface the bone, and so then I had to go back through prosthetics on that side again. So it was kind of like just a never-ending process. But like I said, to kind of make a long story short now, you can kind of see where we've got to now. It's been a long ride, but we are getting better stuff now. I don't know if I can make it work because I'm up here. Y'all probably think it's cold in here. I'm probably up here sweating, but I actually got a Meyer Electric hand now, but I'm sweating, so it's not working real good. But I've got it, and my legs or ankles are actually Meyer Electric ankles, which you probably see me sway a little bit while I'm up here. They actually lock when I sway so I don't fall. But we are looking at, I actually was hoping I was going to be able to bring a new set of ankles to show y'all, which it probably wouldn't have been a pretty sight, me standing up here trying to learn how to make them work. But I tried them on yesterday, but there was parts not working on them, so I've got to go try them on next week. But it's kind of unlimited on what you can get now, but it's all depending on what insurance kind of pay for. That if nobody in here has ever held $1 million, that little thing that I sent around a while ago, you've held $1 million, because that little stone is over $1 million now. Thank goodness for insurance. But yeah, we are improving my life as much as we can. I'm trying to get back as normal as I can be. I've gotten now where I get back in my tractors. Sometimes I have to have some help, but I can actually get back in and drive those. So I can cut hay, I can do different stuff. So it gets me out of the house. I do a lot of hunting. I was always a big hunter. There's a man sitting back there in the back. I'm not going to embarrass him and call his name, but he made me go hunting last year. I was not ready to get out. I didn't want to be around people, but he influenced me to get out and hunt last year, and that was probably another big factor that changed my life as far as me getting back out into the public again. We actually killed a deer, and we actually killed a pig. So if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be standing up here today, because I still wouldn't be wanting to get in front of people. And but he helped me with that. And this year I've already been on 2 hunts with an organization that he is in called Hands of Sportsmen. So I've been on 2 hunts with them, and we have had luck with that. I'm actually in another couple weeks going on another big hunt locally, and so just getting out and meeting the people is just, to me, fascinating. If you get a chance to go to one of these hunts and meet people, you need to do it, because you always think, I look at me and kind of think, how could it be any worse? And I go to a lot of appointments in Charlotte, and you lay around the house and you think, man, it just can't get no worse than this. Well, you go to Charlotte and you meet somebody that's missing both arms, and I'm sitting here going, how do they do it? And I'm sure they're sitting there looking at me saying, how does he do it? And but you meet a lot of interesting people, just like with I'm kind of rambling on now, but with the kidney stone, just trying to tell you how small things, little things can happen that you're not expecting. And like you said, I've heard preachers for years tell me that you're not guaranteed tomorrow. I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard that, and it went in this ear and went out that ear, because that did not pertain to me. And but just, I can tell you one incident of a man that I met up there, like the kidney stone. People can't believe this happened with the kidney stone. This man was missing his left arm, I believe. He walked by a rose bush, and a rose bush scratched him, and it had bacteria on it, and they had to take his arm off to stop the spread. And I'm not saying this trying to scare nobody. I'm not doing that. I'm just telling you, a lot of people ask, at the end, if you had something what would you tell people? And my perception is you're guaranteed today. I mean, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. It don't matter what happened yesterday, because yesterday's gone. Today is today, and you can only do what's going on today to change your life, because tomorrow may never come, but at 12 o'clock tonight, today starts again. So worry about what's going on today, not what's happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow, because believe me, I know firsthand, tomorrow just about didn't come. So that's about all I got. If anyone in here, if I know I might have skipped some stuff, if you got any questions or anything, I'm glad to answer any questions. I don't mind talking about this. As far as kids, when you walk in a room, first thing kids do is look at you. It does not bother me a bit for a kid to come up and tap on my leg or ask me questions. That does not bother me. I am going to tell one more story. Talking about kids, we can learn a lot from kids. We enjoy going to the beach, and we were actually at the beach over the summer, and of course I got a set of what I call beach legs. It doesn't matter if they get sand in them or whatever. So, naturally when you go walking on the beach, everybody's staring at you when you walk down, but we had got down, and my wife would have to walk me down and set me in a chair, and then she'd have to go back and get everything and bring it back down. Well, there were some people beside of us, and we knew the family, but or we knew the grandparents. We didn't really know the kids, but there was a little girl. She was 7 years old, and this little girl, and I think the world of her, but we were sitting there, and she come over, and you know, she talked to me a little bit and all, and with the parents, I don't think really liked that she come over and was talking to me, and it didn't bother me a bit in the world, but a little bit later, she had went back, and she come back over to me. She looked at me, and she, no, I don't care what you look like. She said, I love you just the way you are. And said, if anybody out here laughs at you or says anything to you, you tell them to come see me. And so that's where I'm saying that you can learn a lot from kids, because and that's just like my grandson. My grandson has learned to accept me for the way I am. We can't do what we used to do outside, but instead of me making exceptions, he makes the exceptions to accommodate me so I can play with him outside. So, but yeah, we can learn a lot from kids and all, but thank y'all for letting me come speak and all. This is not my cup of tea to stand in front of people. I'm getting I'm gonna say a little bit better at it, but I have never spoken in front of people. But I'm not saying this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but the more I do it, I'm thinking this is where God's leading me, is, to do this, because this is about the fourth time I have kind of talked in front of a group. And here I am, I'm telling you, I'm rambling on, but it's just stuff that pops in my head. And but the first time I got asked to do this, to speak, as soon as the guy asked me, I said, yes, I'll do it. And he said, you sure did answer that pretty quick. And I said, I didn't answer that. I'm still thinking of a reason not to do it. I said, God's the one that spoke that. I said, but I will do it. And so that, it's amazing how God works in you. Me and my wife both have talked to numerous individuals, give testimony, and they give us testimonies, just at different doctor's appointments, just out on the street. It's amazing who you can talk with and talk to, and any one of y'all can talk to people just like what people come up. I mean, they see me, they want to ask questions, but that's the only way you can get people to come to church, is to talk to them and tell them about the Lord. So, but that's all I got. Jeremy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.